I was on Reddit again and found this: practice makes perfect is a myth. Successful people almost never have to push themselves to get good at something. They're just naturally talented and success comes to them effortlessly. The fact is, naturally talented people will accomplish 100 times the amount with only 10% the effort. Well, that sounds like a fairy tale to me. Of course, I want to give you my opinion about that, but even more importantly, I want to give you as much help as possible. And that's why in this video, we're going to have a look at 3 common practice scenarios and see how true is practice makes perfect. We're going to have a look at practicing chords, practicing melody, solo playing, and practicing rhythm. This is for every level, no matter if you started guitar today or if you've been playing for 11 years. Now, practicing chords, let's keep it simple. Let's keep it essential first with G major and E minor. Either you know them already and you get like a different perspective on them, a different perspective on something that you already know, or you don't know them yet, then I highly recommend learn them and you get a head start for that. Let's say you want to play something like that. That's a complex process. There's a lot of motion going on. So I would have a look at my hands separately. So the left hand separately and the right hand separately. Let's have a look at the left hand first. Now, first things first, you need to know where to put those fingers on the fretboard and you need to know which fingering you want to take and then stick to it. For that G major shape here, I took those fingers, middle, index, and then a ring and little finger on the fretboard. And for that shape here, it wouldn't be that practical to take different fingers. So for example, something like that. That wouldn't be that practical. So it's kind of like the only fingering for that. But for other chord shapes, it's definitely possible to take a different fingering. Now that's where I see the first difficulty with practice makes perfect. Let's actually demonstrate that with E minor. So a common fingering would be that or that. But you could also play it like that. You could play it like that. You could play it like that. You could play it like that. Did I forget anything? So I think that's like 6 combinations, if I counted right, for the same E minor chord. Now, if you imagine you repeated that, you practiced that E minor chord, but you never really paid attention that much to the fingering and always took different fingers here, that would make your guitar playing perfect. So that would be very confusing then. In the moment of playing, you would know where to put your fingers, but you wouldn't know which fingers to take. So really stick to one fingering. That's what I do as well. Unless there's something before the chord or after the chord that would make my guitar playing smoother if I took a different fingering, then I change it too. But unless there's nothing unusual, I stick to one fingering. The next thing that we need for that example, G major to E minor, that I played before, is we need that chord change here. So we want to practice moving from one chord to the other and we want to go back again. So this is, by the way, how I play E minor. Practice makes perfect is absolutely not true, and the proof is in here. This is what happens to a lot of guitar beginners. They build up the chord how they learn the chord shape. So let's say you learn G major like that, little finger first, and then ring finger, and then index, and then middle. And then they practice it like that when they do their chord changes. So they're coming from E minor, and then little finger, ring finger, index finger, middle finger. And they do it again. E minor, and then little finger, ring finger, index finger, middle finger. That's how making your guitar playing perfect. Not at all. What you need is you have to make them move at the same time and make them arrive at the same time. Otherwise, you can't play in time because those fingers are always too late. And another detail why practice makes perfect is not true is if you never paid attention to where to put your fingertips, if you never said like, I want to have them right next to the fret wire, but you say like, I want to have them on the fret, that's okay. And you get that buzzing sound every now and then. How's that perfect? That's not perfect, and it'll never be unless you pay attention to that detail. And every time you practice, every time you say, I want to have them right next to the fret wire. And my point here is not to point at someone and say like, you have to practice it like that and that to make it perfect. That's not what I'm trying to say here. As long as it sounds good for you, that's totally fine. If you honestly feel it doesn't sound quite good for me, then work out those details, make it perfect for your ears. Because in the end, who defines what's perfect? Who defines what's perfect in music anyway, and in guitar playing anyway? No one, except for you. Enough with the left hand, let's have a look at the right hand. I have a pick here in my hand. That is a Tortex Flex 1.14 millimeter, by the way. I play that a lot at the moment. I like it. I'm not sure if it's my absolute favorite for life, but it's a great pick anyway. Let's get away from that G major and E minor thing. Let's make it a bit more advanced here, just to give it some other perspective here. Let's say you want to play D minor 9, C major 7. You want to practice that. Sure, you have to make sure that you have those fingerings here. That's the left hand. We talked about that. But then for the right hand, what I do is here, I have those strings muted, and then I can hear the rhythm very clearly, and I'm not distracted by all those notes sounding. And I play that pattern, and I try to imagine those notes coming out of the guitar. What happens to a lot of beginners here, and that's even more common than the fingering issue that I've talked about, is that they never pay attention to the right hand side, because that's not where the notes are happening. The notes are happening here on the left hand side, so we're very focused on the left hand side. But it's worth focusing on that side here as well. So I would stick to one pattern here to really make it clear for myself actually. So I would play like down, up, down, up, down, down, up, down, up, down, and I mute the strings here, really focus on that pattern and stick to it. Because otherwise what happens if you do it differently all the time, if you mix that pattern up all the time, is you're very limited with the speed, how fast you can go, and also you're limited with the quality. So it will happen that you kind of like do some little mistakes in the rhythm, or that you get stuck in between strings here, and that's easier when you stick to one pattern. And now it's time to put that together. So we worked out the left hand separately, we are very aware of the fingering, where to put the fingers, which fingers to take, and also we know how to do the chord change here. Also the right hand, we worked that out, we know exactly the pattern that we want to play, and we stick to that, and we want to bring that together. So let's stick to that example here. So D minor 9 to C major 7. And there's a fantastic practice trick. Check this out, it's worth it no matter your level. So this works for any transition. That can be a chord change, a position shift. And what you do is you play the first thing start to finish. And then just beyond the point of transition, and then you stop. And what happens here is you can exactly focus on that transition. You can judge, did I succeed with that transition or not? And once you got that down, you only need to keep playing beyond that point. Practice alone doesn't make perfect when it comes to melody playing, solo playing either. So the same principles apply here. Let's say you want to play something like that. That could be a bit of a solo that you want to play, or a melody of a song, or you improvise that and you want to refine that. Again, the same here. I wouldn't tackle both hands at the same time unless it's something that I'm kind of familiar with because I practiced something similar in the past. So you need a few techniques to nail that lick down here. So if there's a hammer on, for example, how do I make a hammer on? You have to work out that separately. There's a slide in it, or two, I guess. How do I do a slide? How do I make it sound? Also, there's a vibrato at the end. How do I make it sound? You need to work out those details to really make it perfect in the end. Again, what is perfect? But if you're trying to copy a solo, something that you like while you're listening to it, or a melody that you're listening to and you really like it, get those details worked out and be aware of the details first and then work on them separately. And same thing here, you already know that from the chords. Stick to one fingering, so work out a fingering that is effective, that feels good, that is smooth, and then stick to it. Otherwise, all the hard work, all the practice is just half worth. And again, I'd love to repeat myself if it helps you. For the right hand, work out a pattern that is smooth, effective, that feels good, and then stick to it. Don't mix it up all the time. Don't play a different pattern all the time. Take the time, mute those strings, that you can focus on the rhythm, and you can focus on the right hand, and then work out that pattern and stick to it. Now let's have a look at practicing rhythm. And for me, there's a big misconception, because I don't believe there are a lot of people out there who don't have rhythm. But a lot of people think they don't have rhythm, so they have rhythm, but I don't have rhythm. That's not true. If you can clap like 4 times straight in your hands, then you have rhythm, right? The thing is, the issue is somewhere else, and I show you where. Now let's think about clapping for a second. If you clap in your hands, that's just natural. You don't think about it. You don't think about that motion. It's actually hard to think about it while you're doing it. Try it yourself. It hasn't been like that all your life though, so you learned it at some stage, and then on top of that, you learn so many other things to do with your hands that just clapping is just natural. You don't think about it. And we want that same for the guitar. Now let's say you want to play something like that. I have a G chord here. There's a lot going on. You have to know where to put those fingers, which fingers you want to take. You have to know how to mute the strings that you don't want to hear. You have to be comfortable doing those downstrokes with the pick without thinking about losing it. You could be thinking, oh, I don't like the sound. How do I improve the sound? That is another thing going on in your mind and distracting from playing correct rhythm. Also, you're switching from long notes to short ones, so you need to know how to shorten those notes. So many things. Try to work out those details and you will improve your rhythm by 1,000. If you need any help with your guitar playing, check out highguitar.com where you can get one-on-one lessons. I understand how frustrating it is to be enthusiastic about guitar playing but not know where to start or what to do next. And that's why every month I help dozens of people just like you to learn guitar quickly, and I'd love to do the same for you. So what's the takeaway here? Of course you have to practice. There's no wunderkind just born into that world and can perfectly play the guitar. That just doesn't exist. All professionals have been practicing a ton in their lives. First of all, you have to be aware of the details, so otherwise you can't work on them, right? So be aware of the details that you have to work out and then work them out, and you will get better and better and better until your guitar playing will finally be perfect. Oh, wait a second, that won't happen, sorry. The guitar is a never-ending story, and that's what I love about it. Did you know all those guitar devils lurking in the dark? Watch this next.